Welcome to the Pool Nation podcast, where it's all pool talk. And we ain't talking about netting and jetting or splashing and dashing. We're talking about becoming a nation of pool pros. We talk about the latest products, trends, and training in the pool industry. Now let's welcome your host, with over a decade of industry insider experience and still the reigning champion of Marco Polo, Edgar De Jesus. With his co-host, the fastest netter in the West, John Chikalis, and Zach, the Pool Boy Nicholas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pool Nation Live podcast with myself, your host, Edgar De Jesus. And yes, I am the reigning champion of Marco Polo, along with John JJ Flawless, the fastest netter in the West, and the famous Zach, the Pool Boy Nicholas. So I want to welcome everybody to our live podcast, the podcast where it's all pool talk, guys, and we ain't talking about netting and jetting or splashing and dashing. We're talking about becoming a nation of pool pros. And yes, we will be talking about the latest products, trends, and training in the pool industry. Guys, so let's get started. John, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Edgar. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How was your week?
Yeah, it was interesting. It's been hot, humid, and ashy. We're dealing with a lot of fires out here in California, so we've been waking up to trucks full of ash and pools full of ash. So it's been a little interesting for us.
Little crazy week, huh? Yeah. I remember those days back out in California. Zach, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
How's your week been?
It's been absolutely crazy. We don't have the fires to deal with, but as you know, we've been getting in that new building, and we finally received our certificate of occupancy, and we had our first fully functional day in the new space, and it's just been a really, really big step for us. And the best part about it is just seeing the team in the new space. Everyone's just so excited to be there, and they keep telling me what an improvement it is from the last location. So
that's awesome. Before we get started today, I want to thank our sponsors for today's episode, Pool Invoice and Ultimate Pool Pull. Thank you for them for sponsoring a live podcast here. So guys, I want to talk about this chlorine shortage and what the options available are. And I think it's really important that we talk about this topic and how it's going to affect our businesses and the industry. And I think the conversation needs to be on how we're going to make changes to our businesses so that the profits don't take a hit. So here are some of the things that we know about the chlorine shortage. And we know that biolab in Louisiana, the one that had the fires where they produce up to 60% of the trichlor products, and that's the tabs and the chlorinating granules. And they also produce some other specialty products. They made some products for the brand Pool Time, and I think that's the Home Depot brand. But they also did the Clorox brand with the tabs and all their products that you kind of see at some supermarkets and Walmart. They did a water clarifier for C-Clear and Natural Chemistry. They did a product or two in the BioGuard. So for those three, for the C-Clear, the Natural Chemistry, and the BioGuard, they didn't do all their products, but they did a couple of them. So I did get a message that they do not expect that facility to be back up and running for another 18 to 24 months. So guys, that's 2 years. That's a long time. So, the question is, what cost increase are we going to see? And I personally think that increase can be dramatic. So, other manufacturers have said that they will step in and they'll fill that demand. But the price is most likely going to go up. I mean, it's business. They're going to step in. They know that there's a demand, and they'll take advantage of the business opportunity and do it, but they're going to do it at a better profit. So,
and that's normal. That's the way businesses have to work. There's an opportunity, they see it, and they take it.
I agree. And I think that's how all businesses look at everything. And it's like, if there's a demand, right, the demand and supply part of it. So I agree with you. We've seen the shortage of tabs and trichlor in the industry. We're not completely out, but there's definitely a shortage. So, this year, I think we've also seen a higher demand because the people are swimming more because everybody's staying home because of COVID and stuff like that. But, I've gotten messages from the pool guys and pool girls out there. And I mean, they're talking about shortages from Boston to parts of Florida, Dallas, LA, Phoenix. I've even heard some of the pool guys that had their tabs stolen from the back of their trucks. I've also heard from pool guys out in LA where they're paying $169 plus tax for a bucket of tabs. And in some parts of Florida, they were paying $90 for a bucket of trichlor, and now they're paying $133. Guys, that's $43 more per bucket, or a 47% increase. We're talking almost 50% more for a bucket of trichlor. So it's crazy. I also know some distributors that are showing, for an example, 100 bucket of tabs in one area, when on a normal day, one of those stores will sell 50 of them. So there's definitely that shortage there. So with that said, what I want to do is I want to put my business hat on, and I'm always talking about being an entrepreneur and having to wear all these different hats. And so this one is going to be the business hat, right? The numbers hat that we need to put on so that we can prepare for it. So I want to talk about the options that are out there. I want the guys to become more knowledgeable with each one of those options. And I want them to be able to put an action plan in place in case they need to make changes, because this has a potential. What's that, John?
If you don't mind, if I can cut in. So when I look at this and we see this issue, or we look at it as a problem, I want us all to kind of sit back and look at it as an opportunity. You know, when we have a shortage of whatever it may be, and these price increases that we have, whether it's 25, 30%, 40%, 50% increase in price, now is an opportunity as a business to be able to have that candid conversation with our customer and be realistic. I mean, everybody in some way is being affected by COVID, whether it's, whether it's their business or in the restaurant business or whatever, or somehow, some way they're being affected. And us as an industry, the pool industry, we're not immune to it either. You know, we've been blessed for the most part. But as far as things that affect us, like, for instance, this fire and the 30% increase in cost, we need to be able to have that conversation with our customer and tell them, hey, look, guys, you know, here as a business, this is what we're facing. And in order for me not to have to raise prices on you when it comes down to these chemicals or treating your pool with the trichlor and the dry chlorine, where there's some alternative methods of sanitation that we can use in your backyard. For instance, salt systems, right? As a company, we have probably about 60 to 65% of all our clients on salt systems, and I absolutely love them. It's an opportunity for us to have chlorination in the pool at a lower level, right? And as far as us using liquid chlorine, we end up saving tons of money monthly because we're not adding as much chlorine into the pool. Every 3 to 5 years, when we have to replace the cell, we have an opportunity to be able to make a little bit more money on the cell. We can sell the benefits to the customer and say, hey, look, you know, here's the opportunity that we have at hand. So when we look at it as an opportunity, now we have a problem where we have an increase in price in chlorine. So why don't we take it as a business and have a candid conversation with our customer and start talking about other options, because the pool industry and the way to sanitize and take care of a pool has advanced tremendously over the years. And now is a good opportunity to have a conversation and say, hey, look, we can install, like, for instance, a salt system into your pool, right? And go over the benefits of what salt systems can do to your to a pool and what the cost is and how it can benefit them. And then as a business, you can take it back and say, hey, look, all right, now if I install a salt system into this pool, not only am I almost immune to this dry chlorine shortage, or I'm able to absorb some of these costs because now I'm saving so much money when it comes to adding, like, chlorine into a pool, or adding liquid into a pool, or shock into a pool, or using tabs. You can completely eliminate that by looking for different methods into sanitizing a pool. So, 65% of our clients are on salt systems, and I go through a lot less chlorine, and I use a lot less tabs than the majority of other pool guys out here. And I love salt systems, and I know they have their faults, and, some people love them, some people hate them. But in my opinion, and the way I sell it to my customers is, hey, look, by putting a salt system into your pool, we're able to generate chlorine at a safer, lower level and keep it consistent constantly, to where when we're servicing your pool, we're not having to add such a high amount of liquid chlorine into your pool, or adding these tabs into your pool, which in turn, we have to drain your pool much more often. And then on top of that, not only do we have that and we save money on liquid, but then we also charge for salt cell cleaning. So every 3 months, we charge $45 for salt cell cleaning to maintain it. And then every 3 years, to 5 years, we replace salt cell systems or the cell itself. So where we get to make a couple $100 or $100 off the salt system. And then the customer's happy. We're happy because we're saving money. And then now when these types of things happen, we're more immune to it because we're better prepared because we have alternative methods to sanitize the pool, whether it be salt systems or UVs or ozone. They all play a part. And I know we're not going to go too much into detail about it in this podcast, but I think it's hypercritical. And I think we need to seize the opportunity right now that this is we're in a perfect position to where we can start talking about this to our customer and upselling them and getting them into these different methods or different forms of sanitation.
I can't agree with you more, John. And here's your option, guys, is we see that rate increase coming for those tabs, right? Because there will be manufacturers that will step in and produce it, but they're going to produce it at a higher cost. And so really as a business owner, you're going to have a couple different options. And just like you were saying, John, you either move to a different method of chlorine, so you use something different, or you move over to a salt system that will produce the chlorine or all that, or you will eat the cost, or you will send a letter to the customer with the rate increase, right? So those are the options. As a business person, I obviously don't want to eat the cost. I need to figure out what my options are going to be. And that's what I want to do on this podcast. I want the guys to understand, and I really want to ask you, John, and you, Zach, from your business standpoint, you stop and you look at this right now, what are those things that you're going to do so that your businesses aren't affected? And the other thing, guys, is at some point, you're going to have to, decide whether you have to do a rate increase or not. And I know that a lot of guys and girls out there are really scared to raise their rates and they're afraid to lose customers. But if you're in business, it's something that you have to do. You have to get good at it. And it's another one of those entrepreneur hats that we have to wear. So if we get to that point that you think, hey, I don't want to switch over to a different chlorine, I don't want to have the conversation with the customers about a different system, I'm not going to eat the cost, but I am going to raise the rates, it's something that you're going to have to do. And what I'll do is I actually have a template written specifically because of the challenge of the fires and the rate increases. So for those of you that are listening, if that's something that you want, what you can do is go into our Instagram page and just hit me up on that message and say, hey, can you send me that template? And I'll send you the template for that rate increase.
The thing about everything that you guys are just saying is that this is why it's extremely important that we continue to educate ourselves. And even though there's certain products or chemicals that we may not be using in our individual markets, it's still a good idea to kind of investigate what's going on. I talk to guys all the time in other markets, and it's really interesting hearing the different products they use. But getting that well-rounded knowledge, at least even if it's just basic knowledge of these other products, it allows you to be able to make those changes and know what's out there when the time comes to make a change.
I agree. I think this is a perfect time for everybody to kind of stop and think and really kind of be an opportunity to kind of get a reboot and look at everything from there. So, John, Zach, I want to get your thoughts here in a second. And I know that you guys will give us some great details into your businesses. So before we do that, because I know that we're going to, probably for the next half hour talking, let me just, put a little note here for our sponsors. We'll listen to that, John. And when we come out on the other side, I'm going to start with you with regards to your business and what it is that you plan to do.
The Hyper Pole from Ultimate Pool Tools is a pool care pole designed by pool professionals for pool professionals, featuring precision-crafted carbon fiber and stainless steel construction. Go to ultimatepooltools.com or Instagram at Ultimate Pool Tools. Introducing Pool Invoice. Pool Invoice is pool billing software that was created specifically for the pool service and repair industry. It was developed for our industry and only our industry. Pool Invoice was built with recurring billing in mind. You can print, email, text invoices, or even send via WhatsApp. You can add recurring or yearly charges, accept credits, and set up autopay. You can even see when customers have seen the invoice. It even has a customer portal where they can log in and see, print, and pay invoices. It has all of your customers' information on one page, so you don't need to search through hundreds of invoices looking for the one you need. Just go to the customer's profile and it's all at your fingertips. It's currently in beta phase, so anyone can use it for free. Just go to poolinvoice.com and request an invitation at the bottom of the page. Pool Invoice was made for you.
All right, guys. So once again, thanks to our sponsors. John, so John and Zach, I really want to get into the detail of what you guys are doing for your business, because I think this is really important for every pool guy out there to kind of listen to and start getting an idea for what it is that they're going to do. I think we're going into a little bit of our slow season, probably in the next month. So it's going to give everybody a breathing room. But I think that's the time that they need to strategize about what it is that they're going to do. And so, John, I'm going to start with you. And I want to get from you kind of what your perspective is on it and what you're going to do as a business to address these concerns with these higher costs.
Yeah. So as a company, every 2 years, we send out a letter for a rate increase. And I think it's hypercritical. And I know you touched a little bit on it where people, it's kind of like taboo and nobody wants to really talk about it. People feel a little, a little worried that if they send out that letter that they might lose the customer. But we need to look at it with a different lens, in my opinion. Every 2 years, or if it seems like every 6 months that we go into the supply house, what do we see? We see a letter right on the counter that says what? Chlorine is going up X amount of money, or Pentair is raising their prices 6% across the board on all their products, or Jandy or Hayward or whatever. And all these costs just keep happening, and who ends up absorbing them? We do as a company. And we for some reason, there's a disconnect between that and then what we charge monthly with our customers. And I find it that it's almost critical, and it's so important that we have to be able to have a conversation with our customer and let them know and explain them in a professional way that, hey, look, as times change, or as time goes on, our rates or our costs to do business, whether it's insurance, or whether it's the chemicals we buy, or whether it's the products, or whether it's the cars or the trucks that we use, everything goes up. And in turn, in order for us to be viable as a company, and in order for us to provide that same level of service and better, we need to be able to adjust with the times. If you just didn't take into consideration inflation, we go up like 2-3% every year in inflation, if you think about it historically. So our $100 or $200 that we charged a month in 2019 isn't worth that same amount of money in 2020. And the same thing in 2021, 2022, 2023. And you figure, so, $100 can't buy me what it bought me in 2019, but yet I'm going to still charge the same amount of money that I did before. In essence, I look at it like, if we're not doing a rate increase to our customers, we're essentially giving everybody a discount every single year. And I don't understand why we would want to put ourselves in a position to where we're giving discounts to our customers for the quality service that we're providing. You know what I mean? So every 2 years, we have a letter and we'll say, hey, look, we kind of explain it. You don't really got to kind of go into detail, but you got to let them know that the cost of doing business has changed and increases, and they can see it in everyday life, as far as like, your cable bill goes up every single year. Your phone bills go up, your electricity bill goes up. Everybody charges you a little bit more. That candy bar, or that soda, or that pack of cigarettes, or whatever in the hell that you're buying costs you a little bit more that next year. And as a company, we absorb the cost for the first year, but on the second year, we need to be able to recoup some of that cost in order to be able to provide you with that service. So if you have 100 accounts, and I'm just throwing out numbers, right, and you're increasing everybody by $10, you know what I mean? Or you're increasing them by 10, even if you're doing it by 10%, right? And you're at $200 at 10%, right? Just think about it. If you do drop off 1 or 2 different clients, or you do lose 3 or 4 accounts, in the long run, you're making more money and you're compensating for it. And those customers that you lost for a measly $10 extra or $20 more a month, or $15 more a month, or whatever it is, are those the type of customers that you really wanted? Or you have to sit back and grip yourself in the mirror and look and say, hey, look, was I not doing a good enough job to where it wasn't worth an extra $2.50 a visit or $5 a visit, you know what I mean? And you got to sit back and you got to look and say, hey, look, okay, what do I need to do better? And you can use that as a learning opportunity or as an opportunity, so you can say, hey, look, I need to improve, or I need to step up my game so this doesn't happen, you know. And we don't see the impact where we lose. You know, as long as you're not crazy, right? I mean, if you're charging $100, don't turn around and charge somebody $150 and expect them not to say something about it. You know what I mean? But if you're raising them up $10 or $15, it makes a difference. And if you do that every 2 years, you start getting in line with where your service rates need to be. You know, you always hear me. The one thing I always preach about is, hey, look, always charge more. You deserve more. If you do better than most, you know, you should be paid better than most. You know, and you shouldn't be ashamed of that. You know, and we fall into the pit of like the $75 pool guy, everybody says, or the $100 pool guy or $80 pool guy, and everybody makes fun of and says this and says that. But I look at it like, you know, those $75 pool guys, a lot of them are the ones that have been doing pools for like 30 years, you know, or $100 pool guys or $80 pool guys. They've been taking care of a pool for like 20 years at that same rate, and they haven't even raised it up, you know. And in reality, you know, they should be making $200 a month now on that account if they took into consideration, you know, just the simple things like inflation and stuff like that. So we don't see it much as a challenge. We look at it as an opportunity, one, so we can become more, we can stay as profitable as we were year over year, and that we can continue to provide better and best service, and we can also invest in, you know, better products and quality equipment, you know, and we convey it that way, and we don't get pushback. We get customers that completely understand it. And I stress and I urge and I challenge you guys, if you approach it correctly, and you do it, you will not see as big of an impact as you might fear that you're going to get. And if you do get an impact, or you think that, or you do lose clients and customers, grasp that and take it, like I said, as an opportunity to look yourself in the mirror and say, okay, why and what you need to do better. Either one, they're a client that you don't want, that you shouldn't have had, you know what I mean, or a pool you shouldn't be doing, or two, maybe you're not doing as good of a job as you think you are, and you need to step up your game and become a better person or a better pool service company.
I think what happens a lot of times is pool guys, and especially when we start in the industry, we're kind of afraid. I think the biggest thing is we're afraid to lose a customer. But it's something that as an industry and as a business owner, you have to master, right? You gotta, and I know it kind of sounds cheesy sometimes, but you got to take that hat off and put that other hat on, and really become good at it. And you'd be surprised how many times. So the first time I was afraid to put that letter out, and I thought I was going to lose customers. And that first time I only went $5 because I'm like, oh man, if I go 10, I'm going to lose customers. And I dropped that letter for $5. Not even one customer even asked me about it. And I was completely shocked. And then that kind of gave me the confidence to kind of start to get better at it. And then it was really kind of, okay, how do I make it sound better in the letter so that it justifies it? And I agree, we need to get better, and especially under this circumstance. And John, if you look at your business, and you obviously don't use a lot of tabs, is what you were mentioning, but do you put an action plan in place to really over the slower time to try to get more people onto that salt system? Is that what your strategy is going to be? Or are you going to go the route of rate increase to try to compensate for that extra expense?
No, I'm going to jump in, and I'm using this opportunity to be able to convert more of my pools or more of my clients into like salt systems. You know, we love them. You know, it's a moneymaker for us. And I think it's a win-win for the customer too. And it's not just, you know, just because we make more money on it. Well, we do, which is good, and what we want to do. That's the reason why we're in this business. But it also benefits the customer. Like I said before, when it comes down to, you know, not spiking pools, or not dumping all this chlorine, and not feeding it tabs, not having to drain your pool constantly, not having issues with algae. You know, if you do it right and you seize on this opportunity and say, hey guys, look, you know, I am going to have a conversation with my clients that do have freshwater pools, that don't have saltwater pools, and say, hey, look, you know, now we need to think about investing in a salt system, so that we can avoid having to charge you for, because we don't charge for tabs. I know there's some guys out there that do, and maybe that wasn't a problem that we had. But I'm seriously considering having conversations with the rest of the clients that we do have to use tabs on during the summertime, and say, hey, look, guys, now we're going to have to charge you $150 or $125 for a bucket of tabs, or a 25-pound bucket of tab, $50 or whatever it is, to compensate for this, because as a company we can't we didn't foresee this. You know what I mean? And two, we can't absorb it. So we have to pass the cost on to you. And it's not just me, it's everybody in the pool industry that's being affected by it. And I think they'll understand.
And this is a perfect opportunity, because normally if you do have to increase those rates, you're afraid to find a reason as to why you're going to increase the rate. That's one of the first things that you kind of start thinking about. So this is the perfect time, because it's a real live case scenario. And guys, 30% is a lot of money. So if you look at, an $86 bucket of tab, that's an extra $25. So it's a huge jump. So now is the perfect time to be able to put something together and say whether you're going to raise the rates or, guys, we really have a shortage. We're really going to go into the next season, and we're going to want to be prepared. And I don't want to provide you with subpar service. So we need to look at these salt systems. And this is the time, guys, for you guys to do the research, to learn about all those other options, and we'll talk about them in other podcasts, but become a pro at knowing everything about salt systems and being able to answer every single question. And guys, it's the perfect opportunity. It's like the cards are presenting themselves right in front of you to give you an in to have that conversation, which normally you don't get. And now more than ever, that people are using their pools every single day. So I think that's huge. I think it's a huge opportunity, and we'll definitely hit those topics up in our next couple podcasts. Zach, I know you've been approaching things, and you've been kind of doing some homework with regards to how you guys are going to address it in your business. But what are you guys looking at, and what have you looked at over the last week and a half that we've kind of started to see this trend of the shortage of the tabs and the trichlor?
So first off, I want to say that I kind of had the same mindset as John, and I saw this more as an opportunity rather than, a good thing rather than a bad thing. And so really, like a week ago, I wasn't super concerned about the tab shortage. It almost didn't seem real. But after the last week of really kind of digging into this, talking to people, and learning more about it, we started to look at it seriously. And I follow a lot of guys and gals on Instagram, and I started to see posts about the shortage and the issues they were experiencing. I've seen pictures of, signs in the window saying no tabs, or I've heard of people having limited quantities that they can buy. And so it made me really just sit down and think, okay, it's time for us to come up with a plan so that we can act immediately when the time comes. And on top of that, we've already been thinking about a better way of taking care of our pools outside of using tabs, because in Houston, and we battle a lot of high CYA, and it sounds like a lot of these markets do. And we've been kind of investigating, like, how can we find a permanent solution to eliminate that CYA issue? So the tab shortage is giving us even more of a push to make changes. And there, like you said, there's an actual problem on the horizon that gives us an actual reason to change our methods. And so we went to the drawing board, literally to the drawing board, and we sat down and we started thinking about, okay, the first step that we're going to have to do is look at our chlorine pools and how we're going to increase that cost to them. And so we've come up right now initially with a rate increase of 2.5% on our chlorine pools only. This is $5 a month. It's the cost of an energy drink or a coffee. I spend more than that every time I walk into a gas station. But so for a customer, it's very minimal. But for someone with 125 pools, that's $7,500 a year. So you really got to think about that. Like, it's a small amount, but it's going to add up to a lot, especially as you're growing. So our salt pools are not going to experience this increase for now. And it's not to punish our customers. It's because we're incurring this cost and we have to charge for it. And one thing that I keep in the back of my mind and I'm assuming this, I haven't heard this, but I'm assuming that this will be the first increase of costs and that there may be more on the horizon. So we really need to kind of account for that possibility as well.
I've heard that too, Zach, which is that, some of the manufacturers will step in, will produce it at a higher cost because they see the opportunity, and it's kind of how business works. But a lot of the question is, if you're able to take your customers and get them used to that higher price as a company, and we all have to look at this, right? If we increase our rates for our customers because the chemicals costs have gone up, and they're used to that higher rate, and then the chemical cost goes down, do you really drop your rates? Right. The answer to that is probably no. And it's probably going to be the same situation with this chlorine shortage, where the prices are going to go up because these other manufacturers will do them at a higher price. But then when that plant comes back online, I don't think that will drop all the way down to the prices that we have today. I think we're going to see a long-term increase in cost of those products.
Oh, absolutely. They're going to seize on the opportunity. They're going to jump it up 30% and say, oh, it's only going to be temporary. And then after everything's back to normal and the supply is up, they're going to go, okay, we're going to lower our prices back down. And now they're only going to lower it down 20%. So there's a 10% increase that we're going to have to swallow.
And this is a unique experience, but exactly. In my experience, once prices go up, they tend not to ever go back down.
Yeah, that's the normal tendency. So, Zach, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but so what else have you been doing? So you're going to obviously look at your customers, which is a great thing, and this is awesome because you kind of look at both of the scenarios, right? You look at your customers that have salt systems. You're really not going to be affected on those, so you don't want to impact everybody. But you look at the side that does the chlorine. So what other practices do you put in place to go after those customers? Is it just a rate increase and that's it, you're done? Or are you going to try to take advantage of the time to put an action plan in place and either try to get them into salt systems or UV or any of that?
Yeah. So we have the rate increase that's going to be going to the chlorine pools, but the rate increase is only valid if we can get tabs. So if this thing really, flares up and we can't get tabs, there's got to be an option to turn to. And the second option we have is that we're creating a way for our current chlorine customers to transition to a salt pool without breaking their bank, but also without breaking ours. So we've come up with some ideas about the possibility of discounting or leasing a system that I think would be helpful to the customers and kind of ease that blow if they want to make that transition, and also ease that blow if it becomes something that's just got to be done. So the way we've kind of outlined this is that there's a possibility of for a current customer on a salt system, maybe we give them an initial discount and then have a percentage down that they have to put, and then give them some sort of time frame that they could basically make payments on it, and we would just tack it on to their monthly fee. And so,
Zach, I think that's awesome. That's awesome. Give a discount, take the opportunity to do that. Hey, look, if you sell a salt system for $1,500, because of this or that, we're going to be able to do it for $1,200 or whatever the cost is. It all depends on which one it is. But you're looking at it like right now, you're going to maybe take a little bit of a hit on that salt system, but you're looking at it as if, hey, look, I'm still making money, but look at the money you're going to save in the long run. If you're dumping a gallon of chlorine in that pool every week, or 2 gallons of chlorine in that pool every week, and adding tabs to it, you're looking at what, $6, $7, $8 worth of chemicals you're putting into that pool. Now that you're going to save that, they have a salt system. So I think that's huge, and that's super important. And that might be something that I might do because I wasn't really even thinking about that. So,
and that's just it. That was our angle, is hey, we're not going to try to make this something where we're just making all this money on salt systems, but we got to look at the other benefits outside of just the price of installing a system. And one thing for me is really appealing about salt is the non-hazardous storage, transportation, and handling. I don't enjoy looking at a pallet with a bunch of trichlor tabs as much as I enjoy looking at a pallet with a bunch of salt bags on it and just having that, moved out of the warehouse, put in a truck, have guys out there handling it. Like, that's all room for error and a chance of having an incident. So the salt problem, I would much rather put salt in place of trichlor. And then, like you said, like the cost of chlorine. And for me, the consistency of having chlorine in the pool. I know personally, we experience pools with the floaters and whatnot, and they can be problematic and just there's never like a consistent output of chlorine. Our salt pools are our least problematic pools. I know a lot of people don't like salt because when it's time to repair or replace, it can be costly, but you got to look at that. That's 5-6 years down the road in most cases. So if you really break it up over the life of 5 or 6 years and then what they pay for a new salt cell when it's time to replace it, it's really not that bad for the benefits that you're gonna get out of it. And in my experience, we don't have a ton of constant maintenance where you have to, clean hoses or take something apart or do it. We got to clean the cell periodically, and it's not a difficult task. So those are just a few of our reasons for going the salt route. And I know it may not apply to everyone. Everyone kind of has their preference, but this is the route that we have chosen to go. And so once we have solidified our two options, and once we figured out all of the details on how we're gonna do this, we already have written the letter for the customers that we're going to send to them. So we'll send this out in the form of an email. And what it'll do is basically explain what's going on and the rate increase for the chlorine pools. And then we'll kind of mention, the alternative of a salt system and click here if you want to learn more. And then we'll take them to a page where we explain the pros, the cons of salt, and then also chart out the options for payment that they have and how we can make this an easier transition for them. And I think it's going to be very appealing to customers because we do have customers that ask about converting to salt and that, and they're just not quite ready to make that jump because of the price. And so here's an opportunity to be able to do that, and it's not going to be so expensive all at once.
And I want to jump in real quick too, Zach. We gotta think. Salt systems have evolved a lot. Back in the day when we're adding an IntelliChlor, and then you got to get a power center, the IntelliChlor alone is like $700, right? Just for the cell for the IC40, right? And then you got to spend another $300 on the power box, right? You're already at over $1,000 in cost at your end, and it's quite expensive. So of course you're going to be selling that system for like $1,700 when you add in salt and stuff, or $1,800, $2,000, whatever it is that you charge. And that's a lot harder for somebody to swallow. But with the advances in technology now with Jandy and their TrueClear, right? And then you have Pentair with the iChlor. Those bundles are like $600-700, guys. You get the cell and the power center for around $700 out the door. I'm sure prices change and vary per market, you know what I mean? But you'll get it anywhere between like $600 to $700, maybe even $750. But it's so much cheaper where you can actually put in a system for around $1,000 and still make a profit, and it's a lot easier for your customer to swallow and say, hey, look, we can do that now. And we have these advancements in salt system technology. And, they're still rated for like 35,000 gallons where the IC40 is rated for 40,000 gallons, and it's a no-brainer.
And that's the route we're looking at, the iChlor and the TrueClear, just because of that reason. Like, the cost is much better and they're great systems. And the other thing that we're doing is we always liked to kind of oversize cells. I didn't appreciate when someone would, just put a 15,000 gallon cell on a 15,000 gallon pool. We like to have that bigger size cell in there. But now we're starting to look at it and it's like, okay, if we're going to be trying to get people to convert to combat this problem, like, we really need to start looking at sizing these cells accordingly, because that can be a matter of, $150, $200 to a customer, which then will smooth that transition for them. And so that's really what we're looking at, is those entry level salt systems. And then of course, when you have your large pools on the back end, we'll have that plan already factored for them, that it's like, hey, well, my pool is 50,000 gallons, and then I don't see that option on here. It's like, okay, well, let's talk about this. And we don't want to overwhelm our customers with all of this information when we only have a few pools that are going to need those larger size systems to be able to handle them. And so now is the time to start looking at all of these things. Sit down, pencil it out, draw it on a board, whatever you need to do, and start communicating with your customers, because you plant that seed from the beginning. And that way, when it's time to act, it's no big surprise. You're not just throwing it out there in a rush and trying to rush this thing and making mistakes or losing money. And then when you talk to them, it's just smoother. Like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember you guys mentioning that in an email a few weeks ago, or I talked to a guy in the field. So plan now, communicate with your customers. So my final piece on that is just sit down, write it out, create a plan, and communicate it.
I'm total in agreement. And here's the big thing that I found in business that always worked for me. And that was that if I took my customer on the journey, they were always more willing when we made it there to make that decision rather than having to throw them at the last minute. So what I mean by that is, if you know that we're going into the slow season, now's the time to start having those conversations with them and saying, hey, we don't have to do it right now, but as we get closer to the swim season, we're going to want to think about that. And here are your options. Here's what you can be doing. And what that allows them to do is it allows them to feel that you're not pressuring them, that they have to buy something right now, but that before you start that season, that's the best opportunity to do it, and that it should be done before then. And if you take them along the path and say, hey, we're kind of going into that slow season, we'll be okay. But as we start to kind of water warm up, we might start to get some issues. And with the issue with the chemicals and the shortage, your pool is going to be better off with X, Y, or Z, right? And it's whatever you decide that path is going to be, whether it's a liquid chlorine feeder or a salt system or a UV or ozone or a fancy sense and dispense, whatever it is. But the door is open right now because you can have that true conversation and you can hit them with the facts. Look, here's the biolab. It produced, 70% of it. Here's what we're hearing from guys all across the US with their rate increases and their prices. So now's the time to definitely have that conversation. It's just perfect timing. So, and if we talk and we say, okay, so there's going to be guys that they don't want to take action, that they don't want to do that. I just want you to think about this. Okay. You're going to need to do a rate increase, because look at these numbers, guys. If you have a 30% rate increase on an $86 bucket of tabs, that's $25.80. So if you use 50 buckets of tabs in the summer, that's an extra $1,250 out of your pocket that you're not passing on to the customers. And that's just in the summer. So the other day I was talking to somebody that he said he used 200 buckets. And I'm like, okay, well, let's do the math. Let's hit it at 30%. That was an extra $5,000 that he's going to be putting out in the summer for just tabs. We're not talking trichlor, right? So if for those of you that use trichlor on top of tabs, you have to do that math as well. What you need to think about is, can I afford that expense? And I think every successful business owner is going to sit down and say, it's time to make the adjustments. It's time to come up with a plan. And like you said, Zach, sit down, pencil it down. And Zach, when you and I talk and you kind of sit there and say, hey, I was sitting with my guy and, we're running these numbers and we're kind of writing it all down and we're kind of going through, that's the exercise that you should be doing. Even if you're by yourself, you just need to grab a piece of paper and go, okay, if I go through 35 buckets of tabs at $25 each, this is how much it's going to equate to. If I want to be successful and not lose that money, what am I going to do? And those are the steps that we need to talk about right now. And that is going to be either your option of moving to a different system, a salt system, or send that rate increase letter. But you're going to have to get comfortable. And I think a lot of guys and girls aren't comfortable with setting those rate increase letters. I think we're kind of afraid to do that. But now's the time when you really need to, stop and think about that and say, what is my action plan going to be?
And have a second option. I don't think that we'll run out of tabs and there won't be any tabs available. But some of these smaller, more outlying places, I would imagine if there is tabs to go around, they're going to be distributed to larger cities or larger markets first. I could be completely wrong, but that's just what my thoughts are.
I agree 100%.
Just have that backup plan just in the event that you go to pick up a bucket of tads and they're 2 weeks out on getting a shipment. What are you going to do for those 2 weeks? So have that plan.
Correct. Yeah.
I know we wanted to kind of get a little bit deeper into the whole thing of CYA and other forms of sanitation. And I don't want anybody to think that we're biased and saying, hey, look, only salt systems are the things that you can put into it. But it's one that's been extremely successful, at least for us. And it just makes sense for us as a business, but I know we wanted to talk about like Rollicam, and we wanted to talk about UV and ozone. And those are the types of things that we're going to probably get into on another podcast. I know we wanted to talk about like the cal hypo, right, and different forms of chlorination, right? And so if instead of using trichlorotab, stuff like that. But I think we're getting close to running out of time, so I think we should take some calls.
Let's take some calls and talk to a couple guys out there. And I agree. I think this is a perfect time. So on our next Instagram Live, guys, we're going to have Terry from HASA on our Instagram Live, and we're going to talk about liquid chlorine. And my goal and our goal now with Zach and John is really perfect opportunity to go in depth and learn about even every chemical. So we're going to have Terry on from HASA, and we're going to learn everything about liquid chlorine, guys, and we're going to get to the nitty gritty, right? So 1 gallon of chlorine is equal to how many pounds of trichlor, to how many pounds of dichlor. How many ppms am I going to get out of 1 gallon, right? So what we want to do is go back and just break everything down. So as you're making this decision, you can look at all your options, because you might be in a market that you say, oh, guys, that all sounds great and dandy to sell salt cells to everybody, but my customers aren't going to be able to afford $1,000, $1,500, then okay, have a different plan. And if your route is that you're going to go with liquid chlorine feeders, we want you to have the knowledge to be prepared and be able to talk to those customers. So we are going to have Terry on that Instagram Live. And then next Friday, we're going to have Jared Schwab from Alpha West. And the guy's just a complete ball of knowledge. And so we're going to talk a lot about those different options and kind of get into, the feeders, the salt systems, the UV, the ozone, exactly what they do, what's the difference between UV and ozone. And then the week after that on our podcast Live, guys, we are going to have Mike from Pentair, and he's going to come over and talk about their UV system. And what's going to happen is he's a product manager. So he's going to be able to really kind of go into detail on that UV system and explain to you guys, again, with the goal to giving you the knowledge to be able to get in front of your customers and really explain every single one of those topics. So, guys, let's see if there's anybody out there that wants to jump on live, talk to us. Now's your opportunity. Hit that button and press that button, and we'll bring you on. So if not, guys, we could keep going. I know that we love the pool geek talk, and we can talk pools all day. And that waiting pattern.
I'm interested to hear if there's anyone else and what their plan is, like what they've got lined out, because that helps me learn too, how to make our plan better.
No, I agree. And I think learning and listening from everybody's different strategies, sometimes we kind of come up and kind of go, hey, I'm going to take a piece of this and I'm going to take a piece of that. And I'm going to go ahead and, combine them and come up with one, idea and one pitch for my customers. Here's the Beard Man. Let's see what he's got to say. Mr. Beard Man, what's going on?
What's going on, guys? Hey, first and foremost, want to take a real quick moment to thank the three of you guys. It's been an awesome thing in here today that you guys got going on, and I'm loving it. Real quick moment, too, to sorry for the dinger there. I'm trying to work at the same time. Real quick moment for 9/11, man. I think we need to get a big shout out to America and have a real quick silent moment there if we can. And you're at the end for 911. And cannot thank you guys enough for what's going on.
I agree. I think we always need to remember 9/11, and it's crazy that it's already been 19 years, but I remember that morning just kind of waking up and watching the TV, and it was just shocking. So I think you're onto something great. So we'll definitely do that before we go off live. We'll have a minute of silence for everybody for 9/11.
Yeah, I'm loving what John and Zach's ideas are with the salt sales. My biggest concern with that is what the manufacturers have kind of, we noticed a huge spike to our acid prices, and they raised acid on us dramatically. And I have a feeling we're going to see that again. And my big thing with this whole tab shortage is, not to preach to get off the pill, but at the same time, it's the alternatives. So as we all dig in and looking for those alternatives, you guys all know which way I've kind of gone. And looking at that, I'm worried about them going in and raising the liquid prices along with the acid prices, because if you're feeding liquid, you got to feed the acid. But at the same time, I think we're going to start to see the salt bags go up in price. So it's something we all got to start paying attention to. And my big concern for the manufacturers out there of the tab chemicals, why all of a sudden the price rate increase? All of a sudden, man, boom, as soon as the plant shut down, all of a sudden we're all paying more for the product that's already been manufactured. To me, that's corporate America taking advantage of a situation, and that's just how I feel about it.
That's
demand thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a supply and demand, and that's kind of the way our world works, right? If there is a big, huge demand and you don't have a lot of supply, then that's when the business owners say, hey, we could do this at a higher profit. Do I agree with it all the time? No, but me thinking and putting myself in their shoes, I know that's, the strategy for every company is to make that money. So I think with the liquid chlorine, I think they're probably, if they're looking at it and they're saying, hey, can we get people to jump on and do liquid chlorine feeders and stuff like that? I think it would be the wrong time for them to raise the prices now. I think from a business strategy, if I was them, I would hold my prices. And then you allow everybody to come on. And then once you have all those customers on, then as a business, you sit back and you say, hey, can we increase the price or can we not? I think it wouldn't be a good move for them to raise their prices right now, as they know, because they do know that there's a shortage of chemicals and that liquid chlorine and liquid chlorine feeders are going to be an option. So I could be wrong, but if I was them, I would be thinking about it, kind of going, let's kind of take this slow and let's kind of see how this all plays out. Because if all of a sudden you are going to spike it, right, I would kind of get irritated and then I would push my customers in a different direction.
But it's something to think about. And I think Beard really hit it there, that, you just got to be prepared for the opportunity of price increases in other forms down the road. I agree. Why would you do it right up front? But it's a possibility.
And Zach, you're totally correct, Zach, because I am thinking about that littler guy that, he's scared to raise his prices, and he doesn't know his value. And man, if we could hook him up with JJ, it just figure out what a pot of gold that is. Because he's challenged me, and it worked. I walked in and he challenged me to go into one of my accounts in my high-end neighborhood and hit it for $150, and I walked out singing a song to him saying, man, I can't thank you enough because you challenged me and I did it and it works. And he's taught me what I'm really worth. But at the same time, for that $75, $85 a month pool guy that's been chugging along, trying to feed these pools the tabs, I look at the tabs as to me, man, you're feeding an addict. That's just how I perceive it. If you use those things out of moderation, they are going to come back to bite you so fast. It's unreal. So to me, I haven't really been scared or freaked out about it. But yeah, I'm listening to what you guys are saying. And, I with the borates in the water, I think the salt cells don't load up with scale as much. So that's a huge plus. And what traction we've all made on that has been huge. But yeah, we got to look at the alternative, any alternative products that we can. Yeah, go ahead, John.
Greg, I mean, you're a perfect example of what we're trying to say right here. I mean, look, when stuff like this happens, you're already prepared. You've been on that UV train, right, and the Rollichem train now for years. You got how many systems on your route? You got like 65, 70, 80 of them. You know what I mean already. So you're well prepared. So when something like this happens, it doesn't hurt you, right? And that's the whole goal. If we see these things in the future, if we need to act on things as opposed to reacting, If we always constantly wait for things to happen to us so then we can react to them, you're always going to start off in a hole. We need to look at our business, and look down the road as in the future, and then act and try to predict these things and try to be ahead of everybody, just like kind of what you did, and if everybody was in the position you were in, it wouldn't be that big of a difference to us. It wouldn't hurt us that much. And I know there's guys out there that are panicking, and if they set themselves up right, then they'd set themselves up for success opposed to failure, because right now a lot of people are struggling.
And I think, I think this is a time where everybody needs to stop and really kind of educate themselves and put a game plan together and be prepared to make a move on their business. I think waiting is probably going to be the one worst thing that any business owner can do right now.
Absolutely.
So, guys, we probably have time for one more call. So if somebody else wants to call in, now is your chance. Hit that little button and we'll bring you in, and we'll see what you have to say. So I got Pool Care Miami trying to call in. Let's bring him in and let's see if we can talk to Jeff. Hey, Jeff, you're online. How you doing?
All right. How are you?
I'm doing great. How is life out in Miami?
Hot and humid,
Humid.
A lot, yeah. It's rough out here. It doesn't go over 97, 96 though. And
So Jeff,
we got another 2 months. What's
Jeff,
up? Go ahead.
what are you going to do for your company? What is your strategy going to be?
Well, we're already putting together a letter, obviously, for the systems as long as they're available.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Go ahead.
Take those out.
Yeah, hold on. Let me. No, forget it. My wife wants me to remove my headphones. What you call it? No, so we've been having a problem. I've been having a problem getting iChlors here, and I love them because they're the most cost-effective as long as the pool is 20,000 gallons or less. The iChlor 30. I think they're starting to be available a little more so now. I'm not sure if Pentair Factory is back up at full capacity. I know Brandon, he's one of our reps out here, and he said that, that he wasn't sure when they'd be back in full. But I bought a bunch of tablets so far. I have about 6 buckets. I might get a few more. The shortage hasn't really hit us so hard yet, but I know it's coming. So I'm preparing for that, But definitely rate increase and just offering to put salt systems in for a little bit less money, to help them out. And, with the borates, that's also, we're going to be using less of everything with having borates in the pool. So,
yeah, I did see your post where you got your pallets of borates, huh?
Yeah, I got 30 bags.
Nice. Yeah, I think
I'm starting with my problem pools. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great strategy. I think an overall strategy, right, to kind of get those borates in to help automatically decrease that chemical consumption, and then acid, and having that letter ready and kind of getting ready to address with the salt systems. I think you're setting yourself up in the right direction, and that's what I hope a lot of the guys get out of this podcast is really kind of there's different opportunities and there's different strategies that you can take, and that's what we want to do. We want to give them ideas. So
Yes,
Jeff,
definitely.
I appreciate.
No, just one more thing, quick. I just wanted to say, if anybody needs any, I know how a salt system works inside and out, and I know everybody's busy, but I'll definitely make time with anybody who needs help. My number is 305-206-9599. I know all you guys help out too, so. Everybody doesn't have the time. I always have some time, though, so feel free to call me about anything.
Hey, I appreciate that, Jeff. And I know every time I've called you, you've always picked up that phone, and I appreciate it. And so we'll talk to you soon.
Even if it's 2 a.m.
Yeah.
All right. You guys be good.
Hey, have a good one.
Thank you,
Say hi to the wife.
I wanted to thank you guys. Thanks, guys.
Anytime, bro.
Thanks, Jeff.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Later, brother.
So yeah, guys, Jeff is out in Miami, and every time you call, he picks up the phone. Is always willing to help and answer all those questions. So, guys, any closing notes? We're kind of towards the end of our live here, and again, guys, for everybody that's listening, we got some great live podcasts that are coming up, and they're all geared towards this topic. And really, I think it's prime time to be able to bring those people on and all of us get educated on all the different options and be able to talk about them well, and then transition from there so that we put our strategy in place. So, John, any last thoughts?
No, man, I think it was a great episode. I mean, there's just so much to talk about and so little time. It feels like, we can keep going on and on and on and on, about so much more I want to say. But, if you guys have any other questions or anything that you heard from me or Edgar or Zach, and you want a little bit more details or some even off subject, feel free to DM us or send us a message, and we'll be more than happy to respond, at least with our opinion and what we think.
No, absolutely. And you guys know, and I get hit on Instagram all the time. So you know that you can hit me up. And if you want to call and talk, I'll pick up the phone and call and talk. So we can definitely do that. What about you, Zach?
I was just going to follow up and say that, as Beard mentioned, I think we should have a moment of silence in respect to 9/11 before we close. And as John mentioned, you guys feel free to reach out to me anytime. I will answer you the best I can. And just know that my opinion is oftentimes wrong, but I will give you my thoughts on it. And hopefully just that conversation will kind of get the creative juices flowing. So
that's what it's all about.
Yes, that is. So, guys, I agree. Let's definitely, in respect, have a moment of silence. So we'll have a minute of silence here before we come with our last thoughts. So let's start here probably in about 3 seconds. That way we can have our moment of silence. So that was our moment of silence for all those that we lost in 9/11. John, Zach, I want to thank you for your time. I know that you guys are really busy, and I appreciate it that you take always the time and do the podcast with me. And I know that it takes a lot of your time too. When I pick up the phone and I call you guys during the week, I'm sure you guys are going, some more pool talk. Here we go. But I appreciate you guys taking the time. I think this is the beginning of a lot of topics that we need to get into. And John, we didn't even talk about the CYA, which I think needs to be another point of topic before we even start talking about all these other chemicals that we want to talk about.
I agree.
I think it's one of those things that everybody kind of tosses and nobody ever kind of wants to get in depth in. But I think it would do some help to talk about that first before we jump in. And we are trying to get somebody on to talk about Cal Hypo and some new Cal Hypo tabs that are skimmer safe. So hopefully we can have Kelly on and talk to her. But a lot of good information coming on all these other podcasts. So guys, thank you for your time. And I'm sure that you will hear from us soon. And we'll hear everybody here on the next Instagram Live. So have a great one, guys.
The sound of you continually pitching pool care poles into the trash. The sound of you using an Ultimate Pool Tools carbon fiber pool care pole for years to come. Go to ultimatepooltools.com or Instagram at Ultimate Pool Tools. Thanks for listening to the Pool Nation podcast. You can listen to us live every Friday here at 8 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Central, and 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can find us at Pool Nation or poolnationpodcast.com or Instagram at pool.nation.